surgery again, so he's out for a little bit as he tries and gets back to 100%. Because, man, the dude is, when he plays, he's one of my favorite Hawks, and he has unfortunately not been able to stay fully healthy his run here, but he's been a really good player. I think he's someone that this regime really trusts. Nate really trusts. Trey trusts. But the shooting's been streaky, but he's still someone you probably want to go to war with and is not scared to take important playoff shots and create his own shot. What did you make of his season? And how much of it did you see of a drop-off between what you saw 2 years ago versus last year?
He's a very important player on this Hawks team. Look, I mean, he was coming in and filling in that six-man role. I thought he did a pretty admirable job, all things considered. Mm-hmm. But really, it was just his efficiency from three. It really dropped off from year to year. Mm-hmm. He was 40+% from three last year. This past year, he didn't hit 40. And I think the Hawks felt it. The Hawks really, really felt it in the win totals, because you have a guy like Bogey, who's just, all of your numbers just drop from year to year. He's probably one of the biggest reasons why the Atlanta Hawks suffered this year. But he's also one of the most important players on this team. Mm-hmm. Part of me thinks, I'm very torn with Bogey, because like you said, he has failed to remain healthy, and then he's just had another surgery, not even with Hawks doctors, which I thought was very interesting as well. But it was very, very quiet. No one mentioned anything. But I'm very torn with him, just for a few reasons. One, because he is so important, and he can be so good. He's a guy who can go get you 30 points in a game. I mean, look, you saw him do it in the playoffs last year. He was extremely important for this team. But when he's not available, this team really suffers. And when he plays poorly, this team suffers even more. Because, I mean, look, you were looking to him this year to be your primary scoring option when Trae Young was not on the floor. He was also a primary distributor when Trae Young was not on the floor. Mm-hmm. And he just wasn't really effective in that role this year. Last year he had Lou Will. I think that made a big difference for him. But he's a guy, if you can add like a second... DeLon Wright was very good at what DeLon Wright was trying to do, not necessarily within the flow of what the Hawks were trying to do. And I think that the fact that Lou Williams wasn't playing, I think had a big effect on Bogdan Bogdanovic, at least with that second unit. Mm-hmm. I want to see him on this roster next year, just because of how important he's been to this team. I think he can, because he can come off the bench, he can play a starting role. He's probably one of your only good perimeter defenders outside of DeAndre Hunter, who's going to be playing. He's a little bigger, but he's like, he can guard a one or two.
He can force steals. Like, that's his main thing. Yeah. Like, he forces turnovers. Like, he's pesky. He tries and does stuff.
Yeah, but he's somebody who can actually do something on defense. Like, he has a pulse, at least. Like, my God, he has a pulse.
And he's good size. He's 6'6".
Yeah, he's got good size. And so I want to see him on the roster. Mm-hmm. But if he is the difference between us getting a top flight guy, like if he's the difference in us getting a Donovan Mitchell or a Bradley Beal or DeAndre Ayton or something, sorry, peace. Thank you for everything you've done here in Atlanta. Sayonara. But otherwise, I want to see him on this roster. So, if that makes sense.
I just don't want any part of the Ayton thing. Like, maybe the stuff in Phoenix, that the way it ended is just a blip and it's nothing to be concerned about. But I was talking to Edwin Powell of Hawksbeat yesterday, and I asked him, like, which one made more sense to him, and if it came down to Gobert or Ayton, or like a sign-and trade is possible for either of those two this summer. Who do you think would fit better with Trae? And his answer surprised me, because he said Ayton. And I don't see it that way. I see it where Trae has been really comfortable with the rim running guys. He loves Clint Capella, kind of like how Harden loved Capella, Chris Paul loved Capella. I think a lot of league guards, high usage guys, like look at Luka. He trusts Dwight Powell. He played better with Dwight Powell. The pick and pop kind of guys, the other superstar bigs, I don't think necessarily plays well. Like, KP did not work next to Luka the way we all thought it would. And I think we're seeing, I mean, look at Steph with Kevon Looney and those guys. Like, you kind of want those if you're going to be a guard high usage team and revolve around your guards, I don't think bringing in a big who thinks he can be Joel Embiid makes a lot of sense to me, because I think he's just going to lead to unhappiness. Kind of like what happened with John Collins, where John's a really good player, and John, I think, just wants to prove that he can be more than what this offense gives him. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but it's his choice, and he can do that, and I wish the best for him. He's still my number one if I had to pick who among this team who's around next year, who is not. It's John one, and then it's a distant everybody else. I think John, I would be completely floored if he is on this roster on opening night. That being said, I'll miss him dearly, but I think Trey would love playing with Gobert. I think Gobert and his rim running and what he does, I think Trey would respect it. I think he would look at it as I don't have to just get killed. Even if I get blown by on defense, I have Gobert behind me to protect. I think he would value that. I think he would love that people take, he doesn't have to answer questions of hey, can y'all still build a top 10 defense with you at the point of attack and just with your limitations on that? I think that would all be something Trey's into. And I don't think Ayton, who would be I got 5 touches, and who doesn't go to the line, who's not a rim running 5, who doesn't shoot the 3, who loves the mid-range shot, who does not draw contact, who's a pretty good defender, but he's not Gobert. Gobert, at least he's an elite guy, and he is someone that has elite NBA skills, where you know how it would work. You know what it would bring to Atlanta. I would just, if it comes down to Capella, Collins, and Herter and picks or something like that for Gobert versus something similar to Ayton, I would go Ayton, I would go Gobert, but I also just don't think anyone's going to want the Bogey contract. I think Herter's contract's much more tradable, and I think more teams would be more inclined to include him in a package around Capella and filler and picks. I think Bogey's on this roster no matter what, and I think that's good because Bogey, he was plus, let me see, per Clean Glass, he was plus 5.8 differential. He's plus 3.1 the year before and plus 3.1 the year before that. But you look at his numbers, the lineups with Bogey in this Hawks roster are good. So the best lineup the Hawks had in all of last year that played 333 minutes together. This was Trey, Bogey, Herter, Collins, and Capella. That was plus 30.3 per 100 possessions, 98 percentile. That lineup cooked.
And how many minutes did they play?
333 possessions, excuse me. And the most possessions that were played, what would you guess is the number one in terms of most possessions of any 5-man lineup? Because they're number 2. Mm-hmm.
I'd say Kevin Herter.
Nope, no Herter.
No Herter. Well, Trey.
Yep.
Bogey?
Yes.
Okay. John Collins?
Yes.
Capella?
Yes.
And DeAndre Hunter?
Yep. Plus 7.6. So still positive. 492 minutes together. And then the second best Hawks lineup was Delon Wright. This is wild to me. Delon Wright, Lou Williams, Bogey, Gallo, and Nkongwu were plus 23.5 and 234 possessions together. 93 percentile in the NBA.
Look, I mean, I'm not, part of me is surprised, but at the same time, the Hawks have boasted one of the best bench units in the NBA for the last 2 years.
Well, there's one common thread. So the top 3 lineups
for
the Hawks that they ran is Bogey. And that's what I try to tell people. It's Bogey is in every great Hawks lineup. He works.
Well, that's why I'm torn. That's why I'm torn on him. It's because he doesn't freaking play.
Yeah.
Because he gets hurt. When was the last time he played a full 80 games? 82 games? Has he? I don't know if he has. He hasn't in a Hawks uniform.
He has never. He played 78 year one.
He was the number one reason for one of the top reasons. I don't want to say number one. One of the top reasons why the Atlanta Hawks turned it around last year, not this past year, the year before that. Lloyd Pierce got fired. Yeah, whatever. Bogdan Bogdanovic came back from injury.
Yes.
He did. And then all of a sudden this roster or this team just started winning basketball games. It's no coincidence. He is one of the most important players on this roster. And that's why I want him to be in a Hawks uniform next year. I also want him to be freaking healthy.
Yeah.
Please, if this knee surgery is finally what he needs to not have these knee injuries or these knee problems, thank God. I wish you would have done it a year ago, But I'm not. That's my only thing is I'm not wholly convinced that he's going to be on this that he's not going to be healthy, and that's the only thing keeping him from a sure thing on this roster. But the other thing is, you talked about DeAndre Ayton and Rudy and Gobert and everything. My biggest thing: how much is Gobert making next year, and how long is he under contract? Do you know?
I mean, Gobert is like early on his new contract.
He's 29.
Yeah.
He's a little old. He's significantly older.
He's the same age as Bogey, I think.
29. Yeah, they're both 29, but one's on this roster and one's not.
Gobert's got 5 years left on his contract, starting at $35 million next year.
Wow. Okay. Well,
Ayton's
the point is,
be in the beginning.
but the point is,
signing and trading for Ayton or somebody like
you're
that.
paying him $45 million.
Yeah.
You're paying him $45 million, but he's also a lot younger, and he has a much higher ceiling.
I don't think so.
Ayton's 23.
But
he's 23, a former number 1 overall pick. He's been consistently healthy, like for the most part. I mean,
Gobert's healthy.
As much as you can ask. Yeah, but I'm not saying he's not, but he's also 29 compared to 23.
But I mean, I'm not worried about the 29 part of it because I think ultimately...
I think Trae Young will make both better, period.
It's that, but also like the window, he's not past his prime, which is the main thing, where you have to keep Trae happy for the next 2 to 3 years. So who cares at year 4 and year 5?
You care if you're getting a dominant big man who's going to be a dominant big man for your franchise for the next decade compared to the next 5 years. 5 years matters, especially with a guy like Trae Young. If you're like, hey, I can win on this roster for the foreseeable future, DeAndre Ayton may be able to do that. Is it worth an additional $10 million, though? That's where I'm starting to get a little iffy, So we'll see.
I do not trust guys who I don't know what they're good at. Ayton, I don't know what he's good at, and I don't know if that ever happens. And I think he's fine and okay.
I think he's still figuring out what he's good at.
Can't do it. You don't have time.
Well, for a former number 1 overall pick, I mean...
We just don't have time for that, man. Like, we don't have time to waste. Like, next year is such a pivotal year that, like, I know if you bring in Gobert and Trae get this team in the top 4. Like, in the East. They're a top 4 seed in the East. They win a bunch of regular season games.
I agree. Because I think Gobert elevates you defensively.
Yes.
In a way that Ayton doesn't right now. Mm-hmm. I think that Ayton is a significantly better offensive threat than Gobert. But the thing is, I don't know how well Ayton would even be able to be featured.
He's not. That's the whole thing. It's like Trae's
matter?
not dropping his usage from 33% to 27% to keep Ayton happy. That's not going to
happen.
happen.
Screw that. No. So I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I'm slowly coming to your team because I think that Trae will make Rudy Gobert better. Mm-hmm. Trae will make DeAndre Ayton better. The difference is Ayton costs $10 million more, and he is a significant downgrade in terms of defense. Mm-hmm. On that side, I think I'm on your team now. So congratulations. You and I just convinced. That was it. That was it. Well, I just talked my way through it, and look, one's younger, but look, I'm trying to win right now.
Yeah.
This team is good enough to win right now. You give me Gobert, you give me Bogey, you give me Trae. Those 3, I'm fine with that.
And
DeAndre Hunter, Okongwu, those guys. Because I think you can play. Can you play Okongwu next to a Gobert?
I would like to see what it looks like. If Okongwu's shot is better in what he's talking about it, where he's like, I will have a 3-point shot. Him saying that, like, we'll see. That's still a wait and see.
Ben
but
Simmons
if he does,
also says he can shoot a free throw, so
right.
We'll see. Yeah,
I
want to see it in action, shooting it on the floor. I've seen these guys shoot in pre-games and everything. It's not the same as shooting in an NBA game. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, it never will be.
We also never thought Collins and Capella would work because of Collins' limitations coming into the league. And he's developed so much with his shot over the years. Like,
John Collins has been a fantastic player. He is a fantastic player. He is a top player at his position. He's one of the best power forwards in basketball. He's not an untouchable player by any stretch of the imagination. He's probably, him and Herter and a pick is probably what it's going to cost for a Gobert, right?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I would sign off, check, send it out. Hot
what's interesting too is we never saw a Okongwu. I'm going through all of our 5-man lineups. and I see no possessions of Okongwu and Capella. Did Nate ever play them together last year? I guess we never did it.
Not really. Well, because one was normally we didn't have a backup center.
Well, I was just thinking with John out.
Okongwu needs to develop into a power forward. That's his natural position.
I don't think it matters. He can bounce between the two, but it's just more of
Sure.
you have to
he reminds me a little of Al Horford.
Yeah.
In that sense, where he's he's an athletic big man who can play big.
Yeah.
Or play on the outside. I just want to see him develop onto the outside. That's all.
So people who are my main thing with John was just that people who are worried about that spacing. I'm people were worried about John, and he figured it out. So
yeah, but the thing is, John Collins could figure it out on a team that was winning 25 games.
True.
So who cares?
Yeah.
And at this point, well, not who cares.
Can you imagine the defense? I would love to see the plus minus for Okongwu and Gobert.
Gobert, and DeAndre Hunter at the oh god, yeah, that would
live
and
die
Bogey
with
at the
Bogey
2,
and Trey.
and then
Who cares?
Trey and Bogey, fine. Bogey, you guard a perimeter, someone on the perimeter. Trey, go stand in a corner.
Yeah,
just go catch it.